What makes an anime arc good? That is the question I'm posing today. I want to know your guys' thoughts. What do you think makes an anime arc good? Hello, motherfuckers. Welcome back to my motherfucking channel. Today, we are ranking One Piece arcs. In a way, I'm kind of just rating them, and then when I'm done, I'll rank them. Now, I'm breaking it up into 6 categories on what makes an arc good. First, an engaging villain. Somebody that just has so much aura and just so much okay, that we just gag over. Number 2 is character development. How are our people moving? How are they moving up? Are they moving down? Are they staying still? It's a question. Number 3 is memorable moments. Okay, now things that make the arc stand out. Is it anime breaking? Is it world breaking? Is it gonna trend on Twitter? Something like that, you know? Number 4 is a compelling plot. Something that keeps you engaged, even if there is filler. It's gonna keep you wanting more. Love that. Number 5, for me personally, is world building. Does this arc give you anything outside of the arc? Is there things that you need to look forward to? Is there plot twist from way back when? World building. Love world building. Okay. And number 6 is high stakes. How high are the stakes? Good question. And with that being said, let's explore the world of One Piece. Now, this video is going to be broken down into 2 different parts because One Piece has so many arcs. So many arcs that I had to kind of compile for the East Blue, for an example. I know that's kind of a saga itself, but I'm just gonna scrunch it, and that's the only one I'm gonna do, okay? That I scrunch together. The arc of East Blue. Okay, let's go back to the ranking system. Engaging villains: Buggy, Don Krieg, Axe-Hand Morgans, Arlong, and Low-Key Mihawk. Okay, we're just gonna add Mihawk here. Great. I think it's great. I love the East Blue villains so much. I love Buggy. I really think Buggy is underrated. I'm sorry. And Don Krieg as well. I loved Don Krieg. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. Watching One Piece, when I got to Don Krieg, that's when I was locked in. That fight with Luffy and Don Krieg, peak, in my opinion. I'm gonna give the villains of East Blue a 7 out of 10. I don't think that they're anime breaking or just godly like creatures outside of Buggy. I do think Buggy is that Loki, and Mihawk too, but Mihawk really isn't a villain, so I'm just gonna give it a solid 7. Now, character development in the East Blue. We're just getting to know our people, our crew, and I think everybody came with a little baggage, you know. Nami had her problem on her village. Usopp had his problem. Sanji was just depressed. What was Sanji? What was Sanji doing? I would say he was depressed or just not feeling fulfilled, okay? Let's say that. And Zoro was just a wandering weirdo. But yeah, you really didn't get much from it. But the fact that they came together was enough. And I'm going to give the character development here a solid 7 out of 10. Now, memorable moments from the East Blue. I may be a little bit biased here because I loved the East Blue arc so much, saga, whatever, so much. And I think there was a lot of fucking memorable moments, but once again, biased. Now, Luffy kicking Arlong right through the entire Arlong Park. Beautiful, beautiful. We've seen it in animated in different ways. We've seen it in the live action every single time, every trip. It's going to be amazing. And that's another standout point for me where I was just like, ooh, yes, I'm gonna, yes, keep watching, yes. And not only that, but the Don Krieg fight, when he punched Don Krieg's armor and the spikes went through Luffy's fist. Ooh. Oh, Luffy. I love me some Luffy, I'm not gonna lie. Early Luffy was just, he was just sick. Loved him. And you know, there wasn't much. He wasn't gear 2nd, gear 3rd, gear 4th, gear 5th. It was just base Luffy doing his shit. And I think that that is a standout moment for me personally. Zoro meeting Mihawk, you know, he wants to be the strongest swordsman in the world. While Mihawk is I just thought that was like, it's very crazy to just throw that so early into the story, especially when the story is now going on for so long, 25 years. I just think that was a pivotal moment in the story. So early, loved it. Another standout moment for me, well, moments, was meeting all of the Straw Hats. All the Straw Hats to me are just so, how do I say it? I love all of them, okay? I love all of them, and they're just so energetic. I just love it. I just love it so much. So I'm going to give the memorable moments from the East Blue Saga an 8, okay? Now for the world building of the East Blue Saga, there wasn't really much, okay? You know, there was the Navy, it was just a bunch of little arcs getting to know everybody, you know, but there were factions that you'd seen. And it did make it interesting, but I still think that it was lower on the list compared to other arcs. I'm gonna give the world building a 6, okay?
Okay, so I forgot to add a compelling plot for East Blue. But once again, there really was no plot. It was just everybody coming together, the whole crew getting to know each other, and figuring out what was going on their separate islands and helping each other figure it out. So for that being said, I'm going to give it a 6. Not too deep, because once again, there's arcs that have so much deeper plot and meaning, and yeah.
Now, when it comes to the high stakes of the East Blue, Don Krieg and Arlong stood out for this category. Honestly, Mihawk had just taken them down, okay? He was pissed. He wanted revenge. Don Krieg wanted revenge. But Arlong was really running the East Blue, okay? If Luffy didn't save Nami or save the entire village, honestly, it would have been down bad. So I think the stakes were there, but once again, compared to the other arcs, I don't think that it's just as high. I am going to give it a 7 though, because it was engaging, it was intriguing, it left me wanting more. So I'm rating the East Blue Saga a 6.83 out of 10. And now we're moving on to Alabasta. Here I go again with the biased. I wasn't really the biggest fan of Alabasta at all. Honestly, I'm going to be so for real. It's, to me, the weakest arc. I'm sorry. But let's start off with the villain, Crocodile. To me, he's overrated. I'm sorry, he's overrated. He's very overrated. But he did teach us a lot, okay? About Logias and how to fight other weird devil fruit users, and just how dangerous the world really is from what we really thought it was. Because I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was just gonna be Buggies and Arlongs and Don Kriegs. That's what I really, at that point, that's what I really thought. But no, I think that he's overrated, but he had aura, okay? He definitely had aura. He literally tried to drown our niggas. He tried to drown them. No repercussions, didn't give a fuck. Okay? Aura. He had aura. And I'm going to give Crocodile a solid 8 out of 10. I'm not going to do his little sidekicks. I'm not going to rate them. Now, for the character development of Alabasta, Luffy learned a lot from his 3 fights with Crocodile, a lot, and I think that was important. I think he took the losses in stride and used it to his advantage to teach him things. And Zoro also had a huge moment. I think that was some great growth from him. But when it comes to everybody else, outside of Vivi, maybe there really wasn't much. To be honest, I'm gonna be so real. Yeah, really. So I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, now the memorable moments from Alabasta. There were quite a few. Every fight Luffy had with Crocodile, to me at least, was memorable. Okay, Zoro versus Mr. Prince was memorable as fuck to me personally. The entire crew seeing the devastation of Crocodile's doings of Alabasta, very unfortunate, but it kept you intrigued. I love that. It was very memorable to me. Also, Robin and Ace's intros. Oh my god, love Robin. To this day, Robin is in my top 2. Not gonna lie, I just think she's gorgeous. Love her character vibe, love her story. It's beautiful. She's beautiful. And on top of all that, there was Poneglyph and Pluton ancient weapon talks. So it was overall it was pretty interesting.
Also, the X's on all the Straw Hats plus Vivi's hand. Well, I guess she is a Straw Hat considering things. Very important, very memorable, and is still even talked about to this day. So I had to add that.
But here I go again with my buts. I think that there was other arcs that just excelled in the memorability aspect of things. But I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10. It was very solid. Okay, I could even give it an 8, but I'm gonna stick with a 7.5. I'm strict here, okay? Because to me, I think every One Piece arc is peak. Okay, I love One Piece, but I'm gonna be real. Okay, I'm not gonna be delusional here. Okay. Now, the compelling plot of Alabasta. Okay, this can go very deep. Okay, but I just want to summarize it like this: Crocodile's mission to flip Alabasta to find Pluton. It's like I said, they dwell more deep into it in the anime and the manga itself. But for the sake of this video, that's how I will summarize it. So you have the Straw Hats that meet Vivi on a whim. And at first, Vivi comes off as a villain. Well, she literally is cosplaying as a villain. Which is interesting, but they end up coming together. She needs their help. Luffy punched her in the face. Crazy. I should have added that to the memorable moments. Crazy. But then they all come together, do their big one, and save Alabasta. So the plot was actually kind of plotting here. It's just, I don't know what it was about Alabasta, why I am so biased of disliking it, or I just dislike it a little bit. I don't know. But I'm going to give that plot a 7.5. Okay? Just stick with me. Because at that point, we really didn't know about the ancient weapons and stuff. I didn't really think it was that important. Personally, I just didn't think it was that important. But I still think the plot was very compelling. Now, the world building of Alabasta, I think this is where this arc kind of stood out to me a little bit. Because as I mentioned before, ancient weapons, okay? We learned a little bit about ancient weapons, not too much. And that's kind of why I am the way I am with it. Why I didn't think it was that important. But the ancient weapons are very important. And they first discussed this in Alabasta. And on top of that, you have warlords. The warlord system was a little bit explained, but not too much here. You also have different devil fruits that did different things that were just weird, okay? So it really made for an exciting future. Also, poneglyphs were big in Alabasta. I always was intrigued by the poneglyphs. I was always more intrigued by the poneglyphs than I was the ancient weapons. That's how I looked at things. I don't know. So I am going to give the world building in Alabasta a solid 8 because, like I said, I think this is where Alabasta stood out to me personally. Now for the stakes of Alabasta. The stakes were very high. If Luffy and the crew did not come to Alabasta and saved Alabasta, the Crocodile would have eventually found out that, first of all, Pluton is not even in Alabasta. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Pluton's not even in Alabasta. He would have figured that out, and eventually either would have became allies with Kaidou or something. I don't know where that would have spun out at, but in the process, Alabasta itself would have been completely devastated. It would have been ground zero, okay, if it was up to Crocodile. So I am going to give the high stakes a 9, okay, because there was a lot at stake. And this, Alabasta is one of the original kingdoms. They didn't go up to the Holy Land. They decided not to go up to the Holy Land, but it still is an original 20 kingdom. And I just think that it's important, and it would have been bad if Crocodile had his way with it, you know? So overall, I'm going to give the arc of Alabasta a 7.91 out of 10. I think that's solid for One Piece and where it started and where it was going. We are going to get better and better over time, and I just, yeah. Okay, now I know you guys probably thought I skipped over Drum Island and Little Garden or whatever, but I'm not. I'm actually going to rank them here. Now, engaging villain for Drum Island and Little Garden. Okay, first of all, Dory and Brocky were not villains to us. Maybe at the very beginning, but they were never villains to us. But Wapol, oh my god, I hated Wapol. I really did. I still do to this day. I think he's a joke, and I cannot take him seriously whatsoever. I guess he had his little funny moments, or whatever you want to call it. It's just, And for Crocodile's underlings, what was their faction called? Overall, they just didn't have aura to me, okay? So I'm gonna give the engaging villains a 5.6 out of 10. Memorable moments, let's start in Drum Island. Kureha's age, I always thought, and still do think that that's so weird. Her backstory, if we ever do get one, is going to be very interesting. We better get one. She's what, the oldest woman? Yeah, because there's giants that are old, but let's just say human. Is she the oldest woman human? I'm not sure. I'll put the facts on the screen, okay? I just always thought it was so interesting. Chopper's Devil Fruit, okay? I have a lot of stocks in Chopper's Devil Fruit being something out of this world, out of pocket. I always thought that was interesting. That stood out to me. But when it comes to Little Garden, the giants stood out among everything, and love that. I absolutely love the giants. I love giants in anime personally. I'm just one of those people. I just like that. Also, Luffy scaling the side of Drum Island, memorable as fuck. Love that. And he was all at the same time he was carrying Sanji and Nami on his back. Power move, okay? Instantly, Luffy was rising in my stocks. I'm gonna keep bringing up stocks because in these early arcs, this is when you want to put your stocks in your favorite characters, okay? So overall, I'm going to give the memorability, the memorable moments from these arcs combined, an 8. Now for the plots, the compelling plot of it all. The only reason that we were even on Little Garden is because we're trying to get to Alabasta, okay? And the only reason we made it to Drum Island is because Nami got sick. Now, the plot wasn't really plotting like all that, you know? It was just get to here, get to here, get to here. If you want to get here, you got to get here type vibe. And I like that because it wasn't really too serious. It was leading up to something more serious. So I'm going to give the compelling plot of these two islands 5, in my opinion. Now, the world building of these two arcs, kind of interesting. There's interesting things taken from both of these little arcs. First of all, elbaf was mentioned here. first. It is now 2025, and we have just entered elbaf. Well, elbaf's like getting there. It's like getting to the peak of what is going on. You have giants. You have just this exciting world that we will eventually visit. Now, Hiralux, I think that's how you say his name, Chopper's mentor, whatever. His mention of wills was very interesting because, as we know, the wills of things in One Piece always are important to our main cast, and even people outside that, like Blackbeard has a will. But everybody that's important has a will and a dream, okay? Dr. Kureha's mention of the will of D. The D name, Goldie Roger. She's the one that told us his name was Goldie Roger, not Gold Roger. Love that, okay? I really like Kureha, alright? I think she had a thing for Roger in the past, maybe? Who knows? So, for the world building of Little Garden and Drum Island, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Just because, like I said, these things are important later down in the story. And it's not just for our cast. Like I said, other people have wills. Other people have the letter D in their name. You know, I think it's very interesting. Okay. Now, for the stakes of both of these islands, you know, I really don't think that Little Garden, if we didn't visit Little Garden, it wouldn't have changed much. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But Drum Island, though, if they didn't make it to Drum Island, Nami would have died. Wapol would have been still fucking with Drum Island. He's a dick. I really hate Wapol. I really do. But overall, it wasn't really, you know, much. Like I said, it was just to get to here type arcs. Okay. So I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. I still think it's interesting, but I just, you know, like I said, other arcs down the line will be 10 times more interesting, okay?
As you can see, I forgot to do character development. Now, once again, these islands were just stepping stones for the next big arc, which was Alabasta. I don't think that they had much character development between these two arcs. It was kind of a low point for these arcs, but it didn't take away from the love I have for these arcs. So I am going to give the character development a 4. Okay. Sorry.
Now, let's move on to something good. Something fun. Okay? Skypiea, the Sky Island arc, is absolutely underrated in my humble opinion. Okay? I think for the people that dislike Skypiea, they need to either go back and rewatch it, or some people skip over it. Go back and watch it. It's very interesting. So let's get into it. Okay, the engaging villain, NL. Are you absolutely kidding? You're kidding me. To me, this was the first character that just spilled aura to me. I know he gets the Eminem lookalike, whatever, the God complex, whatever. He has a reason for that. You know, his power is very OP, and if it was really like that, he could have killed all those people on that island. I'm not gonna lie. Like, he gave you drama, okay? Restarting his own heart. I was blown away, okay? I am a NL Glazer. Absolutely. If Luffy wasn't rubber, he was cooked. Okay, I'm just gonna be so. Luffy is my favorite MC in all of anime. I think he would have been cooked if he wasn't rubber. Absolutely. He NL one-shots most of the people on that island, if not all. So, for the engaging villain, I am going to give NL. This is my first 10 out of 10 villain. Personally, this is a personal belief. I really think that NL is that. Okay, am I going to say it? I'm going to say it. I think NL is the best pre-time skip villain. Sorry. So number 2 is character development. None of the Straw Hats outside of Luffy could touch NL. They couldn't really do anything with him. So when it comes to like powering up, they really didn't learn much. Robin, though, on the other hand, learned a lot, okay, about the world history. They even figured out what the fuck was going on with that Sky Island in particular. But Chopper, on the other hand, he did hold his own in a couple different fights, okay? Poor guy, you know, luck was on his side because he should have been cooked, I'm not gonna lie. And of course, Luffy got a boost, you know. After fighting each and every main villain of an arc, Luffy gets a boost. Whether that be a buggy or a crocodile or an NL. Luffy with the big golden ball on his hand, that was exciting, okay? Nami, her navigation skills with the knockup stream and finding the floating islands, you know, I think that deserves its recognition, and I love that for Nami, okay? And I'm going to give the character development here for those 3 or 4 Straw Hats in particular. I think that it's good, but I've seen better, okay? So 7.5 out of 10. Okay, now for the memorable moments. Once again, I know I'm biased when it comes to One Piece in overall, but I think Skypiea deserves its flowers, okay? The bell ringing at the end of the arc. Beautiful way to end the arc. You know, we learned a lot about Mont Blanc, Nolan. Listen, let's just call him Nolan, okay? And Cricket. I think that moment, them hearing the bell, everybody hearing the bell across the Sky Islands and even down on the Blue Sea, I think that was a standout, absolute cinematic moment for the end of that arc. That's just one moment for me personally.
You know, there's something very almost haunting about the sound of that bell now that I'm really listening to it. I love the sound of it, but it's like haunting, but beautiful.
Every fight Luffy had with NL was exciting, especially when Luffy decided to do the Rock Lee. It looked like he was drunk. He wasn't drunk. He just let go of his mind because NL had mantra. That's what they called it. But I guess it was observation haki, which makes sense. It made sense, but haki just wasn't a thing in the story at that time, so they decided to call it mantra. And Luffy had to let go of his thoughts just to fight this man. At one point, you know, that wasn't how he won the fight. But I thought that moment was interesting. All the fights with NL was interesting because he couldn't hurt Luffy, and NL was crashing out over it, okay? The original... you know, that is amazing. I love every single fight with Luffy and NL. Now, I mentioned it before, but restarting your heart it's just something that you don't really see, or just bringing yourself back to life, basically. Oh my god, because what was his name? Wiper absolutely destroyed NL, okay? With the what is that called?
It's called an impact dial.
But I always thought that NL restarting his heart was next level. I thought we were like end game. And the whole time there was 800 more episodes to go. I also think the knockup stream moment was a very standout, very memorable moment from the crew itself. You know, Mary took so much damage from this, but it was worth it at the end of the day. And it's just memorable. It sticks out for sure. Entering the gates of heaven, I think that's what they're called, the gates of heaven. Heaven's Gates, maybe, because it was kind of giving Heaven's Gates the cult. I don't know if you can say that on YouTube. You probably can't. But I just always remember that being like, interesting, okay? And just the overall, the cinematicness of it entering those gates was beautiful. Giant Jack was also a standout moment because I thought it was going to lead to something like, you know, Jack and the Beanstalk kind of thing. The giant snake, I forget what the giant snake's name is, but I thought that that was interesting because, like I said, I love giants in anime, so like anything giant really stands out to me. And Mary's ghost, the Clobraterman, it's something like that. I thought that that was a standout moment too because it's kind of like the world of One Piece. It's kind of like world building a little bit. Okay.
Okay, so I didn't add this. This is the last standout moment for me from Skypiea, but anytime Eneru does his El Thor attack, I know he has multiple attacks, and a lot of them are standout moments, I'm not gonna lie, but the first one that I seen was so peak. It looks so sickening, especially so early in the One Piece animation. It was just, it's so beautiful. Oh my goodness. The sheer magnitude of this attack is absolutely insane. You guys need to put some respect on Eneru's name. I don't care.
So I'm going to give the memorable moments of Skypiea a 9.5 out of 10. Go back and watch Skypiea for me, please. Pay attention. Don't go into it with a fresh, clear mind. Don't be listening to what other people, don't even listen to what I'm saying. Just go back and watch it and really feel it, okay? It's very early One Piece vibes, but also so many things from right now are being still talked about to this day. The memorable moments really stick out to me, okay? So 9.5 out of 10. Now, the compelling plot of the Sky Island, Skypiea, you know, it kind of lacked it just a little bit, in my opinion. The history of the Sky Islands was very interesting to me, but overall, the plot for what was going on right then and there, Wiper wanted to take out NL and reclaim the Sky Island, which was originally the Shandorians' original island, where they came from, the Blue Sea. It got shot up by the knockup stream 400-ish years ago, and I think that that's an interesting plot, but it wasn't, like I said, there's arcs down the road that really give it. But Enel's evil game to kill everybody on the island and destroy the Sky Islands, for whatever reason, that man is a psycho. I think that was it added more to it, and I think it was interesting. So yeah, the overall history and NL's game and him being who he is really added to the plot. But I still think, once again, there's plots down the line that are just significantly better. I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10. I really think it deserves this. It could even be an 8, okay? I really do think that the plot is interesting, but we got to be strict here, okay? Now, the world building for the Sky Islands, okay? First of all, like I said, Nolan the Liar, Mont Blanc Nolan, they go back 400 years. This is the first time we go back that far, like far back, given history. And I love that. I just love it. I love when One Piece gets in deep and dirty into the history of their world. Love it. The City of Gold, you know, people were talking about it in the Blue Seas for, what, 400 years because they thought Nolan was lying about it. But once again, the island was shot up by the knockup stream 400 years ago. So everybody thought Nolan was fucking lying. That's why they gave him the epithet, Nolan the Liar. He's not a liar, okay? He was just a very unlucky man. Now, Calgara and Nolan not knowing the fate of one another.
Not to mention, this is the first arc where we hear about the name Sun God. And there's like 3 or 4 other gods as well. I think that should also go here in this category.
But the history was very saddening, but like I said, beautiful story writing, okay? I think it just all came together so well. So for the world building of Sky Island, Skypiea, I'm going to give it a 9. I could have gone 10. I really could have, because of the importance of Sky Island and Enel going to the moon afterwards. I'm going to be strict, okay? I'm going to be strict and give it a 9, okay? Now, the high stakes of this was we really didn't know what Enel's end goal really truly was. I mean, we did know that he wanted to go to the fairyverse, whatever the fuck that was, and I guess that's the moon, where he ended up, okay? He did end up going there, but, you know, what was he gonna do down on the blue sea? Like, what did he want to do to the blue planet? But he wanted to destroy the Sky Islands themselves, and almost did. His attacks are insane, okay? Like, I say this very, very serious. His attacks are insane. And if Luffy didn't give him the old twisted sister, Enel would still be, I don't know what Enel would still be doing, but he would have destroyed all of the Sky Islands, that's for sure. Destroying the whole race of people. I know that for sure. 400 years worth of sadness came to an end, and it would have still continued if Luffy didn't do what he did. So I think the stakes were pretty high. Once again, there's higher stakes in other arcs, but I am going to give this a 9 because it is what it is. He was going to destroy an entire race of people. If they didn't have the islands to stand on, they would have fell all the way to the blue sea, dying on impact, okay? So really think about it, okay? Stakes were there. So overall, for the Sky Island arc, I'm going to give it a 8.75 out of 10. I went around and moved and redid some ranks because I have it all written down here, but I'm being strict here. I cannot give everything 10s, but Sky Island is one of those arcs that you need to go back and rewatch it with seriousness and just unbiased. Okay, do it. Okay, leaving the Sky Island, we end up on Longland. This is not filler, okay? And let's just get right into it. The engaging villain. No. Foxy, no. I hate Foxy. I hate Foxy, but I love Longland. I'm just one of those people, okay? Sue me. I love Longland. I think it is a fun little side adventure for the crew. But Foxy absolutely had zero aura, and I think that's on purpose. He kind of just pisses everybody off and annoys people. So what are you gonna do? I give Foxy a 5 out of 10. He did his job, but Now the character development of Longland, knowing what we know, what happens next on Water 7 in his lobby, I think it was beautiful that they all pulled their own. They all worked together to do their things. Even Sanji and Zoro worked together. I don't think this might have been the first time that they like really locked in together in a serious kind of moment. So I just love that, okay? For them, they get props for the character development right there. And you know, going forward through all these arcs and even the past ones, them working together, coming together, does build their character development just a little bit each and every time. But then there's certain situations where it doubles, you know? So I'm gonna give the character development here on Longland 7 out of 10. Okay, I think it's pretty good. Okay, the memorable moments from the Sky Island, I think Luffy and Foxy's end fight, I think that was pretty memorable. I think Foxy's fruit is very intriguing, and I wonder what it would be like awakened. And seeing Luffy in an afro, of course, I'm seated. What? I'm seated. Bring it back. okay? And I've mentioned it, but Zoro and Sanji teaming up, that's rare. That was a moment for me. Very memorable moment. And I think the island itself was memorable. Also, I think that Long Ring Longland will come into play later in the series, but I think the island itself was interesting. I think it was kind of beautiful, dare I say. It was like plain land, just far as the eye can see. I love that. I always loved the look of Long Ring Longland, okay? But there was nothing really standout-ish, crazily, when it comes to the memorable moments of Long Ring Longland. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. Now, the compelling plot of Long Ring Longland, the Davy back fight, okay? Whichever crew wins one of the games of the Davy back fight, can take another crewmate. They can take their Jolly Roger, and I think that was really just the plot of the whole Long Ring Longland. And I always thought that the Davy back was very interesting, and I want to see more of it. And I think there will be another Davy back fight later on in the series. Rox Dizabek got all of his, crewmates through Davy back fight, so it's very interesting. But I think we will see a full-on Davy back fight with better, more formidable players. Okay, the Foxy Pirates just weren't that. So I'm gonna give the plot of Long Ring Longland an 8. Okay, sue me. Now for the world building of Long Ring Longland, there wasn't much. Okay. Although, like I said, I think this island is important and will be mentioned more later in the series. The Davy backfights, that was world building ish. But once again, nothing ginormously crazy. But wait, oh my gosh. See, it's like things that happen so early in the anime always end up coming back. Robin talks about Davy Jones, okay? The infamous pirate. Anything that falls to the bottom of the sea is his. Now we have the Davy clan literally being talked about in the latest chapter of One Piece. Maybe we might have to raise this. I don't know. We got to raise it a little bit. I was going to say 6, but I think we're going to go with 8. Because Davy, it's important. It's important, you guys. Now for the high stakes of Long Ring Longland. If we didn't even go to Long Ring Longland, nothing would have changed, okay? So I can't really give it much. I think that Long Ring Longland is a refresher arc, okay? It feels good. Coming off of 2 long sagas, Skypiea, Alabasta, I think that it was a perfect little revamper, okay? I loved it. So I am going to give the, high stakes of this a 3. If they didn't win, Chopper would have been taken, etc., etc. But if they didn't land there in the first place, that wouldn't even be a thing. Okay. So overall, the Long Ring Longland arc will receive a 6.1 out of 10. I think that's pretty deserving. It's just there. Okay, it's just there. Okay, Water 7 and Enies Lobby. This is one of those where I'm going to put kind of together. Now, for the engaging villain of Water 7 and Enies Lobby, let's give the main one to Lucci, okay? You did have your other ones, Frankie, kind of? Usopp? Kind of? And Spandam, which he led the CP9 agents. I think CP9 is a very interesting faction within the Marines. They kind of do their real dirty work on the low. But let's just go back to Lucci, okay? Lucci's 2 forms, well, his base form and then his ultra monster form. It was really a fight for Luffy, okay? That was his closest call to date with a main villain type character. I think Lucci deserves his 10s, but once again, this is an unpopular opinion, but I think Lucci is kind of overrated, personally. But for the fight that he did give Luffy, I am going to give the villains of this arc. 8. Okay. So for the character development, you know, you get Luffy Gear 2nd and Luffy Gear 3rd. Gear 2nd to me, outside of Gear 5 and Gear 4th Snake Man, Gear 2nd is my favorite. I just think it's so like clean and like crisp, you know? And I think that was a big indicator of character development for Luffy. Usopp here had some character development, okay? Props to him getting his ass beat by Luffy, but also letting go. You know, they had to let go of the Mary. I think that is very much character development, knowing when it's time to say goodbye. Usopp had the hardest time with it, but it made him a bigger person, made him his character better, okay? Robin has the biggest peak outside of Luffy, because I still think Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd crazy, okay? I think that's crazy character development right there. But Robin admitting that she needs help and that she wants to live and that she finally feels like she found a group, okay, that she belongs to. And I think that that's beautiful. That I think the character development here might be the best we've seen so far. Frankie as well, you know, there's very standout characters in this arc alone that get that huge boost in character development. But shout out to everybody in the group, because they really came together to save one of their own. And like I said, they grow from this each and every time. I think it's interesting. I think they all had little interesting character arcs here. And they all grew from it. So this, by far, so far, Water 7 and Enies Lobby, this is the biggest that they've had character development overall. So I'm going to give them a 9.5 out of 10. I think they all deserved it. They all put in their little efforts and had their moments, okay? Robin and Usopp and Frankie in particular, outside of Luffy, okay? Okay, now we're going to get to the memorable moments. Out of all this, Gear 2nd, Gear 3rd. I talked about it just a minute ago, but, you know, it is what it is. He still uses his gears to this day. Memorable fucking moment. That was when RMC finally got the boost that he needed. What was this, like 200, 300 chapters? I don't know. I'll put the facts on the screen. But finally, it was memorable. It better be memorable in your book too, okay? The sinking of the Mary / receiving the Thousand Sunny, okay? The same person that made the Thousand Sunny was his mentor, made Roger Ship. What is Roger Ship called? I really love the name of Roger Ship. I just always forget what it's called. Okay, the fight between Lucci and Luffy, amazing. Okay, well, all the fights, honestly, I'm just gonna be honest, all the fights were amazing from the whole crew themselves. Nami's fight was kind of like, ugh, oh my god. It was funny when they all got turned into like the soap, slippery things, whatever they were. That was funny to me. But Zoro, to me, had the standout fight, outside of Luffy and Lucci, of course. I just think Zoro, he be standing on business. Okay. The Water 7 flooding plus Puffing Tom, the sea train, I think those were also standout moments. Just made you like draw in more to what was going on. The I Want to Live moment, very iconic for One Piece, but Robin's character itself, it's always talked about throughout the internets and the cultures and whatnot, okay? Declaring war on the world government itself, oh my god, amazing. When Usopp shot the flag, well, Sniper King shot the flag, oh my god, it sent chills. It's chills, it's a chill moment, okay? There's a lot of these moments in Water 7. And Chopper's Monster Point, okay, you know, this is when I gave Chopper his 10s, okay? I was like, okay, you know, Sky Island, he held his own in those fights, but this Monster Point, what? That's my boy. But I was scared of him. But Zoro's 9-sword Ashura
sword style, amazing. Okay, I think that stood out. And really, for Zoro, I just love Zoro. Okay, I'm a Zoro glazer, sorry. And the Buster Call was a very standout moment because we get Robin's backstory, which was amazing. The Ohara stuff and that Buster Call that happened, Kuzan, Saul. I think that all was amazing and important, and really stood out to me with all of this. And it all was brought together with the Buster Call. So I'm going to give the memorable moments of Enies Lobby and Water 7 a 9 out of 10. Very strong, very compelling, left me wanting more. I'm obsessed, you know, but once again, I do think that this arc is kind of overrated, just a little bit. But I think it's still good. I see why it's overrated, but I think it's... Now, for the compelling plot of why would I be watching this, you know? Water 7 and Enies Lobby. Saving Robin, it's worth it, okay? She's an archaeologist. She can read poneglyphs and stuff, but not only that, we love her. You know, she's our friend now, okay? So them going all out to save Robin and Frankie at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, it's a revival arc, you know, revival arc. And, you know, those arcs can be very good. I think I'm going to give the revival arc in One Piece an 8 out of 10. I think that there was standout moments that had nothing to do with the arc, really. Well, they did, but they were just callbacks or look forwards. Is that how you say it? Foreshadowing. I think it was amazing. Okay, now for the world building of Enies Lobby and Water 7. Let's start off with Enies Lobby itself. The hole in the ocean, okay? At this point, we are guessing that it is from a past ancient weapon hitting this spot in particular, or whatever was there before. Because what is going on? Not to mention, people fail to forget, people forget that it is always sunny there in Enies Lobby, and why? It's so weird. It was never explained. I think it will be explained at a later date. The gates of justice were huge. I just think Enies Lobby is a spectacle, a weird moment. Okay, I do, and I think it needs to be explained. Okay, now you get the Ohara incident. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but Clover and all his people, Nico Ovia, Robin's mom. You get that. You get Tom mentioned. So the world building was really building here. Okay.
So I don't know what happened to the rest of this footage for this little segment, but so for the world building, I am gonna give that for Enies Lobby and Water 7 a solid 8.5 out of 10. Absolutely deserves it. Definitely kept you intrigued and made you want to know more about the world of One Piece. And for the high stakes of Water 7 and Enies Lobby, OMG, can you be any more serious? This absolutely deserves an absolute 10 out of 10. In my personal opinion, the stakes are high. If the stakes are you setting fire to a world government flag and trying to save one of your people, absolutely 10. Absolutely 10. It really put Luffy on the map as a threat. Okay. And for the overall arc of Enies Lobby and Water 7, I'm going to give it an 8.83 out of 10. Very strong, compelling arc that is just opening the gates for what is to come.
I'm sorry about that last scene. My ring light was dying, unfortunately. But Thriller Bark, we're here. We're in the dark waters of One Piece. Yes. Let's get into it. Moria. Okay. He was the main villain, obviously, of Thriller Bark. I thought Moria's powers were very interesting. Now, when it comes to, like, aura, it's there, but I never really was, like, blown away by Moria, okay? His powers were scary and very unpredictable, but he was just missing something. I don't know. Kozuki Moria, formerly known as Gecko Moria. When I'm going into this looking at these villains, I want them to have oomph. Okay, and Moria really just didn't. I mean, he had the size and he had the long neck. He's weird. He's a weird on this list for me. Goofy design, but he was still very tolerable. It wasn't like a Foxy. Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna give Moria a 7. Okay. I guess he's gonna be important later down the line, but that still doesn't. He still doesn't have aura to me, unless the next time we see him and he's like jacked, like Iroh in Avatar. Okay, for the character development. Once again, them working together each and every time, it just brings them closer and closer. Love that. Zoro meeting the man, the myth, the legend himself, Ryuma. Because for the longest time, we had a feeling that he was related to him. And in Wano, we finally got the reveal. Well, it really wasn't a reveal. It was more like, what was that in a SBS? It was in something that's on the side, you know, it's canon events, but it just didn't take place in the main story, unfortunately. You know, it wasn't really Ryuma's soul that was in there, but the fight was still fighting, okay? And so I think that gives Zoro, personally, a boost, okay? He was fighting one of the greatest swordsmen of all time. Okay, let's be real. It was a different era's Mihawk. And Kuma, coming at the end of the arc, I think was so monumental for them because they had just fought a warlord off. Literally fought a warlord off. And here you go, or here you come with your paw powers going absolutely bonkers, and them just knowing that they have to be on 10s at all time. You never know what's gonna happen. But I think they grew from that just a smidge. Okay, just a smidge. You know, I was going to talk about it a little later, but Zoro's nothing happened moment, huge for him. Zoro had boosts this arc, okay? Boosts. And honestly, I'm going to give the character development here 8 out of 10. I think it's well deserved. You know, I'm going to keep saying it, but there's other moments throughout the anime where there's absolutely 10s from these people. But this one deserves an 8. Honestly, I feel like that. Now for the memorable moments of Thriller Bark. Brook's intro into the story, I always thought was kind of spooky, but done well, where it's not like scary. I just think that surrounding his character is perfect. It was a perfect intro for Brook. Sad backstory. I think Brook's intro is just memorable to me. I'll always remember that. Nightmare Luffy is very interesting. I've seen theories out there that people want Nightmare Luffy back. Okay, and not even that, they think that we might get him. Now that we know what we know about Kozuki Moria, and he might be important in the story again soon. Would you want Nightmare Luffy back? I don't know how I feel about it. It would be, right now it would be crazy because of Gear 5, but I don't know. What do you think? I mentioned it earlier, but Zoro's fight, huge. I think was beautiful, to be honest, but let's keep going. Luffy becoming Oars, or Oars taking over Luffy's shadow. People love to theorize about this too. People thought that Joy Boy was an ancient giant like Oars. But now that we've seen the silhouette of Joy Boy, it's impossible. But there still could be something there, you know? People, don't throw your theories away yet. There still could be something there. 1,000 Shadows Moria. That was good. I love when a villain really just gives it their all at the very end. Love that. Love that for Moria. That kind of gave him a little bit of aura. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was kind of aura vibes. I'm not gonna lie. Moria basically bringing back the dead. Crazy. That's crazy to me. It's just like NL restarting his heart. kind of crazy. You just don't see that every day. It's a way to bring back the dead that is, I think it's good storytelling, because just being able to bring back the dead is just kind of crazy. Moria's power is interesting. I said it was interesting and kind of scary at the same time. And of course, Zoro's nothing happened moment and him gaining Shusui on this island's floating. What was that island? It felt so weird. So overall, I'm gonna give Thriller Bark's memorable moments an 8 out of 10. I think that they deserve it. Absolutely, absolutely. Now the plot for Thriller Bark, we were trying to get Brook's shadow back, okay? And then it turned into this whole thing, which is usually how these things happen, okay? Moria was stealing shadows, like he did from Brook, and putting them in dead people so he can build an army to go take down Kaidou. Okay. First of all, flop. Second of all, you wanted to use people at that you can control to your disposal. You know, that's good villain vibes. But I call him a flop. Or I called him a flop. But I wrote this before we knew about Kozuki, Gecko, or Moria. So he was a flop for losing. I mean, but that is Kaido, so I mean, but that has nothing to do with the plot, okay? I'm gonna give the plot, honestly, truly an 8, okay? It was strong, it was compelling, and once again, I think Moria his power is interesting, okay? I want him to awaken his devil fruit. I feel like Moria could have been better than what he was, and that's probably why he's saving him for the end of the story. He's gonna have a resurgence with a boost. Okay. Now for the world building of Thriller Bark. First of all, more warlords. We met Kuma. Okay. Gecko Moria was a warlord as well. So there's that. Then Ryuma and Shusui. Okay, Ryuma is important. They gave him his own spin-off episode, okay? Let's just be real. Because not only are there people alive right now, and 15 years ago, 19 years ago, 20 years ago, but Ryuma is from a long time ago, okay? So that's interesting to me. And I think the biggest mention here for the world building is the first mention of Wano. And Wano wasn't for another 600 episodes. So, or even chapters, okay? So I think that is definitely a standout moment for the world building, and I'm gonna give it a 7.5, and that is being carried by the mention of Wano here, okay? So 7.5 out of 10 for the world building. So the high stakes here is Brook would have died. Brook would have never been on our crew if you get seen by the sunlight, that is, because of Moria's power. So a lot of people would have died. Even one of Big Mom's daughters was here. Okay? And Kuma would have killed Luffy if it wasn't for Zoro. I'm just gonna be real. Luffy was cooked at that moment in time from his fight with Moria. So Kuma just coming in and finishing it off would have been so easy. But I've seen higher stakes. We know of higher stakes. And so I'm just going to give this a 7.5 out of 10. They were there because people were going to die, okay? But we've seen better.
Okay, so for some reason I forgot to put the final score on Thriller Bark, and it is a 7.66 out of 10. I think that is perfect, especially because we know what arcs that we have ahead. And I think that this was just getting us to where we needed to go at the end of the day, okay?
We are moving on to Sabaody. This is one of my favorite personal arcs because it's so small, but it's still so grasping, you know? It's very important here, okay? The engaging villain, okay? Let's just say, okay, world government, celestial dragons were also here. Kuma, because we didn't really know, but Kizaru is the biggest villain here, okay? Very formidable, okay? And unforgettable moments here. Was this his, I think this was his intro. I think it was. Boy, what an intro it was, okay? For a moment there, he almost became my favorite admiral, but to this day, I'm a Kuzan guy. It is what it is. Kizaru had so many good moments, you know. He's kind of dopey, but it's perfect for his character. And let's be real, at that time, at that moment in time, he could have one-shotted every single one of the Straw Hats. Not to mention, he tried to. When it comes to aura, when we seen admirals back in the day, I think that they all had aura. Okay, I thought that they were like, I thought we were all cooked whenever they came on screen, I'm not gonna lie. But Kizaru was a threat, and it felt like a threat, okay? So I am gonna give the engaging villain of Sabaody a 10. I was gonna give him a 9, but now that I really think about it, he was bloodlusted, trying to kill our Straw Hats, okay? So I'm gonna give him a 10. Now, for the character development of Sabaody, Luffy being in the unknowing of his crew and vowing to get stronger so he can save the people that he loves and cares about, okay? He was devastated. You know, people love to rag on this moment right here, but I look at it as like character development. Personally, that's just how I see it. Things became a lot more serious, okay? A lot more serious. Honestly, I think he thought his crew was dead, okay? The devastation was there, all right? It was very moving, very powerful, and I am gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10 because seeing that makes you, like I said, everything gets serious for him, and it did get serious for him. Now for the memorable moments of Sabaody. There's a few, okay? Stick with me. Kizaru's intro, standout. I already mentioned it, but it's a very standout moment to me. The Worst Generation's intro, okay? I always loved Law. I loved his power. I loved everything about Law. Kid, on the other hand, I was always not a fan. Never was a fan of Kid, to be honest. But they all did have their own little aura. I guess Bonnie. This is my favorite Worst Generation, though. I forget what his name is, but he's from the Sky Islands. Burka, I'm pretty sure, and I just like him. You guys know how I feel about the Sky Islands. I just think that that guy has a lot of aura and maybe a lot of importance later on in the story. The Celestial Dragon intro, you know, they don't have aura. I mean, but the situation itself has aura. Don't look at them. Don't touch them. You know, Luffy one-shotting a Celestial Dragon, sending him back to the manga. We love to see it. We love to see it. That was one of Luffy's best moments in the entire manga anime, okay? Intro to Silver's Rayleigh. We knew this guy was going to be important because he was this right-hand man to Roger, Goldie Roger, the old Pirate King. Hello? How is he not important? Kizaru one-shotting half the characters on this island, okay? Very standout. Very standout. He has so many attacks that are just like, oh, what did that guy just do? Because he's so fast, okay? And I think that he's a standout character, especially in this arc. And the last standout moment from Sabaody for me was Kuma one-shotting the entire crew, okay? Well, at least Luffy thought they were getting one-shotted, okay? So overall, I'm going to give the memorable moments because they stood out, okay? I mean, Luffy punching a Celestial Dragon alone, amazing. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, okay? Now, for the compelling plot of it all, okay? They came here to get their ship coded to, you know, just vibe on Fishman Island. Nobody knew or nobody said that there was going to be an admiral here one-shotting people to hell. Nobody said that. So it made for a surprise, okay, and an engaging surprise. All of this happened because Cammy was going to be sold to a world noble, and Luffy punched him, sending him back to the manga, like we said, causing Kizaru to try and eliminate all of the Straw Hats, but we know and love Kuma saved him, or saved all of them. So the plot was plotting, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. It could be a 9, but strict. We're being strict. Now for the world building of Sabaody. First off, we get more admirals, okay? So there's more to look forward to. There's others. We're now comparing them to Kuzan, okay? World nobles, okay? This is the first time we're seeing them in the flesh. Hate them. hate them, hate them, hate them. But they are a huge part of the world of One Piece. So, information about Fishman Island, the next island that we were supposed to go to. That's 2 arcs later, 2 full arcs later. Like full, Marineford was full. I think that is interesting. Something to look forward to. And the worst generation, okay? Let's look at it like this. This is this generation's of pirates to look forward to. What was the generation before this generation, which was Roger and Whitebeard and Big Mom and Kaidou. But what was the generation before them? It was Rocks. Now we know it's Rocks. But who was Rox's, like, you know, like, who was his mentor, and so on and so forth. So it's definitely adds to the world building here. The new generation title, for me, it got me thinking. So I am going to give the world building here an 8. Could be better, but it's still very good and very strong. Okay. Now, the high stakes. This is another one of those arcs where the stakes were unfortunately high. Let's be real. If the crew didn't have Kuma there, they were all cooked. I'm just going to be so real. I think Kizaru one-shots all of the Straw Hats at this point in time. And one of the only arcs where the high stakes are cooked, what the villain wanted to do came to fruition. We got rid of them, but not at the same time. But in Luffy's eyes, everybody was cooked. I'm going to give the stakes in Sabayori a 9.5 out of 10. I really think that I was on the edge of my seat personally, okay? I don't know about you guys, but personally, I was on the edge of my seat. Now, overall, I'm going to give Sabayori a solid 9. Like I said, this is where things got serious. Before this, everything was just like fun. There were moments, you know, with Lucci and even NL one-shotting characters, you know, but this was more serious. This was the world government. And now we move to Impel Down, the highest secured, rated prison in all of One Piece. Nobody has ever escaped besides one time. Well, now 2. Now, the engaging villain of Impel Down, underrated villain in my eyes, Magellan. He's the main villain here, okay? I mean, you did have your Blackbeards and the very weird monsters that were littered throughout all of Impel Down, but Warden Magellan knew what he was doing. He was standing on business. Okay, absolutely. Absolutely, I'm giving him his 10s. So I'm going to give the engaging villain of Impel Down, which is Magellan, a 9 out of 10. I think he absolutely deserves it. Like I said, he stands on fucking business. Period. Respectable. Okay, for the character development of Impel Down, here with this video, we're only focusing on the Straw Hats, let's be real. But if we were focusing on other characters and them to work with Luffy, even though he has beaten them, some of them multiple times, #buggy, they would low-key get their 10s. But it was just Luffy, okay? And Luffy had to team up with people that, you know, he had beef with before. But Luffy's always been like that nice guy. You know, he would always been like, okay, it is what it is. But Luffy took this very serious. He needed to get to Ace. Luffy literally got those shots that Ivankov does to make you basically was doing some kind of drugs type vibe. But no, I think that is very important to Luffy's character development, because it shows how far he will go when somebody he loves and cares about is in danger. Okay, so I'm gonna give that 7 out of 10. I think it deserves, for sure. It wasn't too much, but it was something. Okay, now for the memorable moments of Impel Down. Once again, there's kind of a few here. Luffy's encounter with Blackbeard. This is the second time they met, I'm pretty sure. And this moment had so much aura, okay? Luffy really wasn't that guy yet. He was, but he wasn't that guy on a powerful scale. Blackbeard, on the other hand, if he really wanted to, in that moment in time, Luffy would have been cooked. There's so many close calls early, before the time skip, okay, there's so many close calls. Luffy meeting Jinbei, I think that stood out because Jinbei becomes very important in the next arc and even ends up joining the crew later on down the line and linking back up with these villains. Like I said, you had to work with Buggy, you had to work with Crocodile, you had to work with Bon Clay, Mr. 3, I think he's Mr. 3. It was a moment for sure. Like I said, I think that that's growth, first of all, to understand your position and what's going on and being able to adapt to that position and what is going on. Luffy almost dying to Magellan, very standout moment. That's why he had to get those shots from Ivankov. But when I say that's why I give Magellan his 10s, he's very strong, almost overpowered of a villain. He has the poison fruit, I think that's what it's called. It's something like that. And almost killed Luffy. Let's be real. And Blackbeard breaking out legends to join his crew. I always thought that was a standout moment because breaking into a legendary prison to break out legendary pirates and people of the swords so they can join your legendary pirate crew, that's aura. Okay. And also escaping, not just breaking in, escaping out. So overall, for the memorability aspect of Impel Down, we're gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Things stood out to me. Okay, it felt serious. The compelling plot of Impel Down. Why are we here? We are trying to break Ace out of Impel Down because he is scheduled to be executed, but unfortunately they're too late. By the time they make it to where Ace was, the ship had already sailed away. Okay, so now they have to escape back out of Impel Down. Luffy already broke into Impel Down, but you need to leave and escape in enough time to make it to Ace to save Ace. Okay, the plot was plotting here. Let's be real. So I am gonna give the plot a 9. Okay, because it felt serious. The plot it kept you wanting more. Okay, so yeah, the plot is rating high here. Now for the world building aspect of Impel Down. Impel Down itself, a legendary 7-layer prison, okay, that houses very dangerous criminals. We learn a little bit about the Revolutionary Army here, just a little bit, not too much, but nothing too much, okay? So I am gonna give it a 6 out of 10 here. We're being strict. Now for the high stakes of Impel Down. Now, let's just say it outright. Ace, okay? Ace was the highest stake to Luffy at that point. If they didn't make it out of Impel Down in time, they wouldn't have made it to Marineford to try to save Ace, okay? But to make it to Marineford, to make it out of Impel Down, Bon Clay had to sacrifice himself. When people have to sacrifice themselves, the stakes are staking. Okay, once again, this was a lead-up arc to the next main plot point of pre-time skip era, so the stakes better have been high. It kept me engaged. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. Personally, the stakes were high. People were gonna die. Bon Clay had to sacrifice himself. Okay, it was a lot going on. Now, for the final score of Impel Down, I'm giving it an 8.3 out of 10. This, once again, was a stepping stone to the next arc, Marineford, and it just, you wanted to get to the next arc, but you were still here, and it still felt important, engaging. It was a spectacle, okay? Now on to Marineford, the peak of pre-time skip, okay? When the story comes to a head, and everything after this feels calculated, like more, just like I said, more serious was coming from not only Luffy, but the entire crew and the entire story. Okay? The engaging villain of Marineford was really the entirety of the world government. Warlords, you had even the admirals, the lead admiral, Sengoku. There was just different people for different people. Okay, there was a lot of people. But we're gonna give the main villain title here Akainu Kizaru and Kuzan, okay? The three admirals that were really taking charge in this arc. And this was our introduction into Akainu. I'll get more into it in a little bit. But aura spills off of these three Marine admirals, okay? It's not even funny. They feel serious. When they're on the screen, you feel serious, especially pre-time skip. And especially for this war. They all wanted to just get it over with. Just kill Ace, whatever. That's what they wanted. And they were gonna do it whether they liked it or not, okay? So the aura was absolutely spilling off of them. I am gonna give the engaging villain of Marineford a 10. A solid 10 out of 10. They absolutely deserve it. They absolutely have aura. They absolutely have presence. And they felt serious upon the screen. Now the character development for Marineford, huge. But really, once again, I could be thinking about other characters, but I'm not. I'm just focusing on Luffy. But I do want to add, a lot of people learned a lot. Not just Luffy, the entire world. Remember, Buggy was filming most of this war. Luffy unlocking Conqueror's Haki. Huge for him. Huge. Comes into play. Now, we have to remember, Luffy just lost his crew, okay? He knows they're not dead, but he lost his crew. They all got sent to different parts of the world. Spoiler alert, I guess, if you never watched Marineford. Ace dies, okay? That is Luffy's brother. He grows from that. Devastation on his face at the end of the arc. We'll get more into it, but you feel it. It's emotional. You feel that. And honestly, I'm glad it happened. I'm not gonna lie, because now Luffy is more dedicated than ever to fulfilling his dream, his crew's dream. He just wants to be stronger. Let's be real. Now I'm gonna give the character development a solid 10. Physically basing this off of the way Luffy came out of Marineford, okay? The way after the 2-year time skip. Let's be real. Luffy, his character development was on a 10 here. I'm gonna give it a 10. Now, here we go. The memorable moments of Marineford. There's a lot. Okay, sit with me. As in Giant Jack versus Whitebeard. The way Whitebeard flips this absolute behemoth of a creature with zero hesitation and zero effort. Oh my god. Aura. Absolute aura. The Whitebeard Pirates intro. Them coming up through the water in coated boats. OMG. Every time I see that, I'm just like, okay, big dog's pulling up. The Emperor is pulling up, okay? Kuzan freezing giant waterfalls, okay? That, amazing, okay? And it's because of Whitebeard's devil fruit that he had to freeze these. That moment just solidified. Kuzan will forever be my favorite admiral, okay? Powerhouse. Absolute powerhouse. Now, Akainu's intro into the story. We knew there was 3 admirals, okay? This was his debut. Okay, he better be good. And Lord, he was good. His moves that he did, his crazy, I think it's called when he brings on the magma fist from above. Absolutely stunning, absolutely cinematic, and he felt the most threatening out of the admirals. Luffy unlocking Conqueror's Haki was also a moment. Okay, an important moment. That when we get flashbacks in the future, when Luffy is using Conqueror's Haki, we're gonna look back to that because that was his first time unlocking it, using it. Okay, Blackbeard's arrival here. Okay, he was just at Impel Down, freeing the bad guys. Okay, and letting them join his crew. Okay, and we ended up figuring it out. Killing Whitebeard, unfortunately, and taking his devil fruit, and resigning as a warlord. Stunned. absolute stun fest, okay? Blackbeard was setting himself up to be One Piece's final, if not one of the final villains of the story. His crew reveal, that's when we found out who joined his crew from Impel Down. Some of them are kind of cringe and dopey, but they still have aura. I'm sorry, they do. And the fact that Blackbeard could eat 2 devil fruits, the dark fruit and the quake fruit, interesting. Very standout moment here, okay? And to this day, that is an unanswered question, so we're still waiting. Mihawk's attacks. OMG. Anytime Mihawk is on the screen, I think I said this when I was talking about the Baratie. Anytime Mihawk is on the screen, you're flabbergasted, okay? Anytime he does a move, especially, you're flabbergasted. He's the world's strongest swordsman. Of course you're gonna be flabbergasted. Of course. Luffy having so many close calls is also a standout moment. There are so many times in this arc where I was getting anxiety in real life watching this man try to cross this battlefield to save his brother. And there were so many close calls for him, which I'm glad he came out on the other end. Luffy popping up on the admirals, Jinbei shoots him through the water and he has a log. That moment right there solidified Luffy for me. Absolutely. There were moments in the past, okay, but this right here, okay, there's still 600 more episodes. I'm watching all of these. I have to, okay? I think that moment is one of Luffy's greatest moments in the entire anime. Okay, but Luffy's entrance into Marineford, them falling from the sky, spectacle. He always has to make a spectacle whenever he enters the fray. Now, a huge standout moment, which was a fight, was between Akainu and Whitebeard, okay? Akainu punched, in the manga, he punched the side of his body off. They didn't show that in the anime, whatever. But Akainu getting punched into a pancake? A grilled cheese? What? You have to give Whitebeard his 10s. You absolutely do. Whitebeard's moves were so spectacular. Very standout. Every time he went to go punch the air, I was locked in. I had to watch it. Like, yeah. Okay. Honestly, something that stands out to me that is kind of underrated and not really talked about was Luffy seeing how Whitebeard's crew moved. Not really just Luffy, but how we, as the watchers, see how they move. These were one of the only pirate crews that really reminded me of Luffy. Everybody was here together to do something, to fight together for one cause. And outside of this fuck-ass nigga, I hate him. Let's be real. And now, Ace's death. Of course that stood out. It was such a moving thing, not only for the watcher, but for Luffy and for the entire world to see that, okay? But not only Ace's death, Whitebeard's death as well. When Whitebeard died, it felt like the world lost a grandfather, okay? But he was a good pirate at the end of the day, okay? He was fighting for the good. But not only that, he didn't like to pick fights. He was a calm being, okay? I absolutely stand Whitebeard, and it was such a loss. But Whitebeard's death and Ace's death opened an entire new era. Kobe and Shanks. The Kobe, Shanks, Akainu moment, very standout because it just shows you how much pull Shanks has, okay? Regardless, okay? That's an emperor, okay? Sengoku holding back GARP, because GARP was about to lash out, okay? But he had his moment. He could have done that, you know? I think that GARP thought that Luffy and Ace had it figured out. I think that he really thought that they were gonna escape. Now I'm sure I missed a few, okay? You know, there's standout moments that maybe I just glazed over, whatever. But let me know what your favorite standout moment was from Marineford, okay? And I'm going to give the memorable moments from Marineford a solid 10 out of 10. It's some of the most memorable moments from the entire anime. That arc was memorable, you know? Like, everything about it was
peak pre-time skip. Okay? Okay, now the compelling plot for Marineford. The world government wanted Ace dead, okay? So Luffy had to travel here from Amazon Lily to Impel Down all the way to Marineford to try and save his brother. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but the plot itself, very compelling, okay? It was a very good retrieval attempt, okay? And I like that it ended up the way it did because it does end up being such an important moment in the series and such a talked about moment within the series, and the plot was just plotting, okay? The whole grand scale of the story turned up to a 10. Luffy does not want to he doesn't want to deal with that. He shouldn't have to deal with that. His friends dying because they have a certain name. Oh, it's honestly beautiful story writing, but it's so sad. But I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. It definitely, the plot of Marineford deserves a 10. Straight up. The world building of Marineford. Okay, see, there wasn't really much, but there was, okay. First of all, the Navy. We finally had the full reveal of all three admirals, the admiral system, the lead admirals, and Goku. It kind of gave the Marines layers, more layers that were interesting and you wanted to see more. The Emperor system really shined here. In this arc alone, we had 2 current emperors. But overall, for future emperors, Luffy, Buggy, Blackbeard, Shanks was here. You had so many people that could be emperors, that could have ended up emperors, and they did end up emperors. And there's even other people that could have been emperors if you really think about it. Doflamingo was here, Crocodile was here. It's a solid arc. So I am gonna give the world building a 10 out of 10. There's a pattern showing here, okay? But I think that if any arc deserves 10s, it's this arc, okay? This arc really sets you up for the end of story. Alright? Yeah, it really does. Blackbeard, Luffy, Shanks. First of all, okay? The only reason Luffy went on to do what he did was because of Ace. Now the high stakes of Marineford, clearly Ace, okay? Ace, like I said it earlier in the video, Ace is the highest stake right now for Luffy, okay? The stakes were sad. They were really sad, but it was good. It was a good story. I keep saying storytelling because Oda told a story, okay? So I am gonna give the high stakes a 10. I absolutely deserves it. If somebody like that is in trouble and needs your help, Luffy, and they're related to Luffy, it's up. It's up. The stakes are always high. Drop everything type shit, you know? So for the overall arc for Marineford, I am gonna give it a 10. I am gonna give it a 10. I absolutely clap. Thank you. For an arc like Marineford to be talked about outside of One Piece, it is sometimes called the greatest arc in anime history. I agree, you know? Now, there is a thing where it's like, is it my favorite? Or is it just highly rated and deservingly? Now, when it comes to my favorite, it's not my favorite pre-time skip arc. Skypiea is still my favorite pre-time skipped arc, okay? And this is how I would rate these arcs on a scale from whatever I put, okay? I think that this is what they deserve and how they deserved it. And I really went through these arcs and tried to give it my best, you know? I tried to be strict, okay? And I think it really kind of, I don't know, I feel like people are going to disagree with some of the things here, but you have to really look at it. You have to look deeper. Not everything deserves 10s. Not everything is worth 10s. Even if you really, really, really like it, okay? Not everything is worth 10s because, to me, I would have gave Skypiea 10s. I'm so sorry that this video was so long. Okay, I went into it thinking I could do this in one day, but it turned out to be several, almost 2 weeks, I think, at this point. And in the beginning of the video, I was sweating my ass off. Okay, and now I'm in a big hoodie. It's just wild. Okay, so I am here for the long haul. Okay, I'm very excited to keep pushing out my One Piece content. I just uploaded a video of what I think the One Piece is, and I really think you should go watch it. I feel like somebody's thoughts or theories on what they think the One Piece is says a lot about themselves. So that's what I have to say, okay? I want to know your favorite arc pre-time skip. What is your favorite pre-time skip arc? And let's talk about it, okay? And I hope you can look at this as a reference, okay? If you want to go back and rewatch One Piece, make sure you look at these certain things: character development, plot, the villains themselves, you know, and really look at it, okay? But I guess that's it. Thank you so much for watching if you did get this far. And I guess that's it. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bye, motherfuckers.